All right, Ben, a week ago, I would have been really worried about the Houston Texans going against a defense as good as Baltimore's, but then they go out and they shred the Cleveland Browns for 8 yards a snap. I still can't get over that stat. Almost like basically a first down every time you snap the ball. How much confidence should that give the Texans, and how different of a challenge does this also very good Baltimore Ravens defense present?
Yeah, to answer your first question, Dave, I mean, the Texans should have a lot of confidence, right? I mean, you shred the number one defense in the NFL. Like, if there's one defense that was better than the one they're about to face, it was Cleveland, right? And they're able to move the ball very, very effectively. It doesn't really seem to matter what kind of defense that CJ Stroud goes up against. He's able to exploit those weaknesses, and I think in that wild card game against Cleveland, I think Bobby Slovic, his just the aggressiveness in terms of attacking that number one pass defense, like they're very confident in themselves. I think that's the one thing we can say about the Texans, and so yeah, they should have a lot of confidence going into this game. I mean, this Ravens defense is different. I mean, you think about guys like Kyle Hamilton in the back end, and then just the simulated pressures they run, and so there'll be it'll be a different kind of challenge. But again, going back to that confidence that Houston should have coming out of the last round, I don't think they have any fear. And then you just think about the first time that they played Baltimore in week one. I mean, both teams are completely different, but Stroud was still able to move the ball very effectively. I mean, red zone, it kind of stalled a bit, but overall, still, and it was his first game in the NFL, right? Like, he was still really able to move the ball against this defense. So I think if you're the Texans, you should have a lot of confidence.
You go back and look at that game, and you're right. Like, I remember way back week one, like, you don't have a lot of expectations for the Texans. The final score is 25-9. You're like, all right, the Ravens did their thing. Of course they did. Then you go look at it and you're like, CJ Stroud played pretty damn well in this game,
Yeah.
all things considered for a debut. I do think it's a really great point though, is and I mean, Cleveland's defense had a phenomenal season, but it's very much under Jim Schwartz. It's a line up and go sort of situation. And I do think this may be a little bit more intricate of a challenge for CJ, just in terms of how versatile the Ravens are. I talked to Marcus Williams about this on the show last week, just about all the different things they can do, the different places they can line guys up. I'm past the point of doubting CJ Stroud, but is he capable of being confused, do you think, by a defense like this?
I mean, is it possible? Yes. I mean, just again, because of what we've seen from Stroud, it's like it's really, really hard to root against him. But like I was saying earlier, Dave, I mean, this Ravens defense does present like different kinds of challenges. Like it is elite, just like Cleveland was. But you think of Justin Matabuke at the defensive tackle spot, how much internal pressure, like from the interior part of that line, how much pressure that CJ could be facing that he hasn't faced before. And then I think as good as Cleveland's linebackers are, Baltimore's is on a whole nother level, right? You have Roquan Smith and Patrick Queen, and then you spoke about the versatility that they have, which I think is most notable. Like with that secondary with Marcus Williams and Kyle Hamilton and those guys. So it's a different kind of challenge. They will, I think they will be able to maybe throw some things at Stroud that he hasn't seen. I mean, as good as he's been, he's only played 16 games in the NFL. So I think they'll be able to throw some things that he hasn't seen. But I think one thing that the Texans do have that they didn't have in that first matchup is a run game. Damian Pierce was still the starter in that season opener, and he really struggled. And we know we've talked about this on the pod, right? Like just how much Devin Singletary has meant to this Texans offense, and really being like a top three running back the second half of the season. So I think even like from the passing game perspective, if they are able to uh, throw some stuff at Stroud that maybe they're not expecting or whatever, I think just having a guy like Singletary back there to take some pressure off it is really going to help them.
I got to give you a ton of credit for this. You mentioned it before, the way that Derek Stingley played against Cleveland the other day and what he was able to do to Amari Cooper. I'm curious for your thoughts on how the Texans play this Baltimore offense. I don't think there are as obvious places to start with the Browns, like with the Ravens as there were with the Browns. You know, Cleveland, you got Amari, you got David Njoku, and it all kind of goes from there. It seems like the Ravens have a more diverse cast of characters. Where do you think the Texans focus in trying to slow Lamar Jackson and these guys down?
Yeah, I think the big thing, Dave, is that Mark Andrews might play. I mean, that's huge, right? He's one of the
Which is
best.
incredible, by
Yeah,
the way. Yeah.
yeah, just considering the injury, right, and missing what the last 6 weeks of the regular season, how much of a challenge he's going to be because he is Lamar's favorite target. I mean, they came into the NFL together in Baltimore in 2018. Last several years, he's been an insurance blanket for him, and all that jazz. And so I think just if you're the Texans, you're expecting him to play and just figuring out, okay, like how best are we going to account for someone like that? I think that's number one. I think number two, if I'm the Texans, if I'm D'Amico Ryans, I'm really concerned about Zay Flowers and D'Amico talked about it in his press conference this week, but just how shifty he is, and we know he broke some of the Ravens rookie receiving records, but just how dynamic he is and uh, all season and really in the second half of the year, the Texans really struggle containing those explosive pass plays. We even saw it early in that Browns game where they let David Njoku get behind the defense and who is it? Bryant, I can't remember his first name, that tight end for the Browns.
Harrison Bryant, I
Harrison
believe, right?
Bryant and that yeah, Harrison Bryant and another receiver as well. It may have been Amari Cooper, may have been someone else, but they have been what my point is they have been susceptible to some of these big plays in the past game. So when you think about how dynamic Zay Flowers is, I'm concerned about that too. And Odell has, we've seen him play really well in the postseason with the Rams, for instance. So like you said, it is a diverse cast of weapons, a different kind of challenge that the Texans will be facing. But again, I think it really starts with Mark Andrews because that's Lamar's number one target. And so I think if you can start there, then I think you give yourself as good of a chance as possible into a tough environment.